What's going on? My name's Robert, and you are watching Southpaw Auto Works. In this video, we're talking about the Planetary Gearset that lives within an automatic transmission. The Planetary Gearset is what makes forward gears, reverse, and neutral possible. All Planetary Gearsets share certain things in common, which we're going to cover in the video. If you're new to automatic transmissions and you have no idea how they work, it's a complete mystery to you, this video is a great starting point. This is going to really demystify a lot of how the transmission is able to create the different gears. And this is a great foundation to build upon. All right, on the bench we've got a couple of Planetary Gearsets. This one here is out of the GM 4L60E. Its predecessor, the 700R4, used pretty much an identical setup, minor differences. This stack up here is out of a Ford C6, and Ford actually, for the E4OD, they used the same rear Planetary Gearset, what you're looking at here, and they added another front Planetary Gearset for the overdrive. Once again, that was the Ford E4OD, 4R100, etc. Both of these Planetary Gearsets are what are called compound Planetary Gearsets, meaning they are comprised of two Planetary Gearsets. For starters, let's take a look at just one Planetary Gearset. Let's take a look at this front Planet out of the 4L60E. It's comprised of a sun gear, a planet carrier, and a ring gear. So this is set up a lot like the solar system. You've got your sun gear at the center of the universe. It's surrounded by planets, and the whole solar system or universe is encompassed by this ring gear. So the ring gear has internal teeth, while all of the other gears have external teeth. Sun gears come in a variety of shapes and sizes. Some have splines like so on the outside. Some may look like this. Some sun gears may have splines on the inside. In the case of the C6 transmission, both the front Planetary and the rear Planetary Gearsets share a common sun gear. This is called a Simpson gear set. Some sun gears don't have any splines. Here's a sun gear out of the overdrive section on a Chrysler Torque Flight series transmission. So your 518 and the like. Planet carriers come in different shapes and sizes as well, but all with the same function in mind. They just hold these pinion gears. Planet carriers can have varying numbers of pinion gears. For example, this C6 front planet carrier has 3 planets, or pinions. The rear setup also has 3 planets. However, both the front and the rear 4L60E planet carriers have 4 planets, at least on the 4L60E series. The 4L70E, for example, same setup, but it's got more pinions on the planet carrier. Here's the planet carrier out of a Chrysler transmission, and this one has 5 planets, or 5 pinion gears. Ring gears come in different shapes and sizes as well, but they always have internal teeth. Here's one out of an A604. This was like Dodge Caravan and the like. A rear ring gear out of AOD, AODE 4R70W. So like 90s Mustangs and stuff like that. Chrysler ring gear out of one of their rear wheel drive units. E4OD 4R100 and the like. As you can see, regardless of the manufacturer, whether it's GM, Ford, or Chrysler, all Planetary Gearsets operate in the same way. They all are comprised of the same components, you know, a sun gear, a planet carrier, and a ring gear. And a lot of transmissions have more than one Planetary Gearset. A lot of them having two, and many of them even having three Planetary Gearsets. Let's put together a simple Planetary Gearset. We've already got our ring gear. We'll install our planet carrier, followed by our sun gear. This is a basic Planetary Gearset. Sun gear, planet carrier, ring gear. By manipulating this Planetary Gearset, we're able to achieve forward movement, reverse movement, and neutral. By manipulation, I mean supplying rotation to Planetary Gearset members. You know, the sun gear is a member, planet carrier is a member, ring gear is a member, just for clarification. But by rotating certain members while holding other members from rotating, we're able to achieve those forward and reverse gears. The weight of the gear set as it sits right now is holding this ring gear from moving. So we could say that this is being held, and let's rotate the sun gear. So in this case, our sun gear would be driving, our ring gear would be holding. Through process of elimination, that leaves our ring gear to be driven. So in other words, sun gear is attached to the input shaft, or engine rotation, I should say. Sun gear is attached to engine power, receiving rotation from the engine. Ring gear is held by the transmission, and then the planet carrier would be attached to the output shaft. Believe it or not, this Planetary Gearset is capable of achieving up to 5 forward gears, 2 reverse gears, and then of course a neutral. All of those gears are achieved by supplying engine power to different members of the Planetary Gearset while simultaneously holding different members of the Planetary Gearset from rotating. So it's all about rotating one member while holding another member. And this can be done in a number of different combinations. Let's go through some of those combinations. So what we're going to do is throw some tape on here, just for a reference for us. So we can count revolutions. So our first gear, if you will, that we're going to make with the Planetary Gearset, we're going to drive the sun gear while we hold the ring gear. And like I said, the weight of this unit is going to keep that from rotating, so I don't even have to actually hold that with another hand. We're going to drive the sun gear, hold the ring gear, and then we're going to count revolutions. So we need 1 revolution of the planet carrier, because that's what's going to be attached to our imaginary drive shaft here. That's going out. And we're going to have more revolutions in than out in this case. So let's start counting. We've got 1 revolution in, 2 revolutions in, and now we've got 1 whole revolution of our output. So that was 3 in to 1 out. So that ratio is 3 to 1. So that's a typical first gear, whether it's the 4L60E, and that's actually how they achieve first gear in the 4L60E and the 700R4. But whether it's this GM trans or even the Ford C6, its first gear, and a lot of other transmissions, it's real close to 3 to 1 or 2 point something to 1. And that provides what's called gear reduction. It does a couple of things. Gear reduction actually takes the input and it increases the torque by a factor of 3 to 1. And it also raises the engine RPM, which gets it into its prime operating engine speed where it creates more torque. So what would happen if we were to drive the sun gear again, but this time, instead of holding the ring gear, let's hold the planet carrier. All right, so I've got my tape on my input and my output. And again, with the output, that needs to go 1 whole revolution, and then we stop counting our inputs. So I'm going to hold the planet carrier and drive the sun gear. Got 1 revolution. 2. It's about 2.2 to 1, I would say. And as you probably noticed, this was moving backwards. So that was one way to achieve reverse. In the last 2 examples, we've used the sun gear as the input, meaning we've supplied engine power to the sun gear while holding one of the other planetary members. What if, instead of driving the sun gear, we drive the planet carrier? So let's put some tape on that. In this instance, let's drive the planet carrier while we hold the ring gear. So our input is the planet carrier and our output is the sun gear. Again, we're going to count revolutions of input to 1 revolution of output. So here we go. Whoa, we're there already. This turned really fast. We're already at 1 revolution of the sun gear, and we didn't even make it a half a revolution of the planet carrier. We made it, I don't know, maybe 0.4 of a turn. So this ratio would be 0.4 to 1. This is an example of an overdrive. You've got less coming into the transmission and you're getting more out, or you've got the same, engine rotation is engine rotation. So for 1 revolution of the engine, and we're not even a whole revolution, you've got more going out. Let's do 1 whole revolution of the engine just to see what this overdrive, would do. There's 2 turns of the output shaft. 3 turns. So in this case, in this overdrive, if we did 1 whole revolution of the engine, we'd be getting 3 turns at the output shaft, or at the wheels. The output shaft, I should say. We're not counting the rear differential because it's got its own gearing. So we're driving the planet carrier again, but this time instead of holding the ring gear, we're going to hold the sun gear. Got 1 revolution of the output to, a little over a half of the input. I'd say that's about 0.8 revolutions to 1. So 0.8 to 1. All right, so we've driven or supplied engine power now to the sun gear in 2 instances, and to the planet carrier in 2 instances, leaving only the ring gear. Now we need to drive this and hold one of these 2 components to see what gears can be achieved. Ring gear is our input. Engine power is going to rotate the ring gear, and then we're going to hold the planet carrier while the sun gear does its thing. And there it is. 1 revolution of the output to roughly 1/2 of the input, so 0.5 to 1. And you may have noticed that the sun gear was actually going in reverse. So this is another way to achieve reverse. Last but not least, let's drive this ring gear again and now hold the sun gear. Got 1 revolution of our input. And there's a whole revolution of our output. This roughly, 1.55, 1.6 to 1. So like I said before at the beginning, that it's all about driving one member of the planetary gear set and holding another member. So you could drive the sun, hold the planet, drive the sun, hold the ring, or drive the planet carrier, hold the sun, or hold the ring, or drive the ring and hold one of these two members. There's one other thing that we can achieve with this planetary gear set. Instead of driving one member and holding another member, we can actually drive two members at the same time. So if I grab the sun and the ring and I rotate them together, everything locks and rotates as one. In this case, we've got two inputs, our sun gear and our ring gear. So we've got one revolution of our inputs to one revolution of our output. 1 to 1, also known as direct drive. So again, here, if I put some tape on our output, I'd actually need 3 pieces of tape running across the sun gear, the planet carrier, and the ring gear. But as everything locks together and it rotates, we've got 1 to 1. This 1 to 1 gear ratio is commonly used for third gear. In the case of the C6, third gear is 1 to 1. This, if you remember, is the front planetary gear set out of the 4L60E. This is actually how they achieve third gear or that 1 to 1 gear ratio. The forwards come on, which drives the sun gear, and the 3/4 clutch that lives right outside of this hub here, it comes on. Those clutches, the forwards and the 3/4 clutch, are splined to the input drum, and now it locks this ring gear and that sun gear, all of it, to the input drum and rotates everything all together. And this planet carrier is actually splined to the output shaft. You might get on Google and look up the specs for the 4L60E transmission, the actual gear ratios, and you would find that first gear is roughly 3 to 1. In this case, it's exactly 3.06. But then you go to second gear and you go, wait a minute, Robert, none of those gear ratios that you covered just a minute ago, none of them match second gear. And you know why? Second gear isn't achieved with just this front planet gear set. That's where the second planetary gear set comes into play. This one handles second gear, fourth gear, and reverse in the case of the 4L60E. And all other transmissions operate in a similar fashion. They've got 2 to 3 planetary gear sets, and they'll achieve a couple of the forward gears with one gear set and the rest of the gears with another gear set. And this is done in order to achieve the most desirable gear ratio for that engine, transmission, and differential combination. That's all done with 2 things in mind. One is torque multiplication, taking a heavy object, like a 4,000 or 5,000 pound vehicle, and getting it moving from a standstill. And then the other consideration is fuel mileage. Overdrive is used to increase fuel mileage. So just to recap, this is your basic planetary gear set. Got a sun gear, sits at the middle of the universe, if you will. Around it rotates the planets. This is called the planet carrier. And then encompassing all of it is the ring gear. These 2 items have external teeth, as you see, and the ring gear has internal teeth. Most planetary gear sets look just like this. Basic transmission operation is all about either supplying power to one of these items or supplying rotation, if you will, and then preventing one of the parts from rotating. And then the one item that is not being acted upon, not being rotated or held from rotating, is the output. And this is how the gears are made. These gears are all in constant mesh with one another, and clutches and bands are turned on and turned off in sequence, timed just right to achieve the desired gear ratio. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. I would love to hear from you. Drop me a line in the comment section down below. If you haven't done so already, subscribe, and don't forget to hit that notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. If you're interested in helping this YouTube channel grow, there are a number of ways that you can get involved. There's more information in the video description down below. Thanks for your consideration. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next video.